Hello, Ryan here, and welcome to Star Citizen Sunday. This is a weekly show which covers all of the news from the week just past. Be sure to subscribe if you like what you see, and let's get on with it. This week, Ship Showdown continues on, plus we get an update on where persistent entity streaming is, and it sounds like it's coming along very well. So this week's Inside Star Citizen talked all about persistent entity streaming, which is the next big foundational tech update coming with Alpha 3.18. Now, persistent entity streaming allows CIG to persist the entire game world and then restore it when they need to, so nothing is ever lost, meaning anything that we do in the verse will remain there. So if you place a ship in a location, put a bottle of water on the ground, place Pico the Penguin anywhere, whatever it is, it will be there the next time that you come back in, regardless of how long it has been. This also means that if you destroy something, it will remain destroyed indefinitely on the server. Now, of course, this does have side effects. For example, we could literally dump a load of bottles in one location, like a landing zone, and so it will look very cluttered. Plus, this will affect performance after a certain while. So some items will be covered under what they have called the lifecycle management system, meaning they will kind of get recycled or culled, so places don't just get overly cluttered with, well, litter. But don't worry about your ship, the base that you build, your weapons and items and things that you drop on the floor. It will be a hierarchical system, so only items with zero significance will be removed, like empty water bottles, bullet casings, and so on. Ships, for example, will be probably right at the top of the list of items in terms of priority, so they won't just disappear. Now, what I love about this is that he mentions the need for maybe janitorial systems. As we have heard in the past, instead of empty bottles just simply disappearing in front of our eyes after a set period of time, which we see in a lot of games, instead they will have an NPC janitor, which the work on a AI janitor behavior was completed last year in June, who will come along at appropriate locations and clean up the mess, removing it from the server to help with performance. But he also says there are discussions about how to create gameplay missions to get players helping clean up, which I'm sure for many people sounds horrifically boring, but the beauty of Star Citizen is you don't have to do what you don't want to do. So if you don't want to clean anything up, don't do it, as I'm sure there will be plenty of other people, plenty of players out there, myself included in fact, who would actually quite enjoy wandering around locations, cleaning up mess, maybe grumbling to ourselves about how messy people are, which I would love to include in my future video series, like a day in the life of a janitor, of a cargo deck worker video, those sort of things. But for doing this, I can't imagine the pay would be all that great, but it will definitely be a great role-player option from time to time. So in the last 3 months, the team had been working to get the first stage delivery done, which is just to get it into the game dev branch, meaning everyone in the company is now using this persistent entity streaming branch to develop the game. So that is now done, which means that they now have stabilized this technology enough to allow the entire company to work on it. Now, at the stage where they are right now with this is they are at the stabilization and bug fixing stage to get it to a releasable state. Now, there is a new team kicking off their work, which are the deployment team, who are taking this technology, working in the game dev branch, and then breaking it up into smaller services that run in the cloud. So the operationalization of this technology is what they are focusing on now, which means bringing it to us on the PTU. So basically testing everything, getting it ready for us. He also does mention that so far the increase in player count has had no side effects on this tech, which is great to hear, as it will obviously need to scale with even more than just 100 players. So from here, he says it's just a straight line to deploying it out to us for the Evocati first off and ensuring that it operates well at scale. Already they have tons of data coming in and a bunch of new tools to help players who are having issues, like the character repair tool that now allows them to not have to reset whole accounts when we are having an issue. Instead, it will target only the actual problem which they want to get in before launching 3.18, as it will be very beneficial in case of any corruption events. Now, this is pretty awesome, so instead of us having to do a character reset, they will just be able to fix the exact issue without anything else being affected, which is a great update in my opinion. So basically, to recap all of this, it is now just at stabilizing and deploying, so they are making a beeline to launch it for 3.18, which, as we have heard, is intended to be at the end of September. It will be released in some state. Guesses are Evocati, Although he doesn't suggest any dates himself, he does say that they have it running in the cloud, but they just want a little bit more time before they are comfortable to deploy it. Now, persistent entity streaming won't really make Star Citizen look any different, but it is a major step to getting Star Citizen to what it is basically wanting to be, and it is also a requirement for server meshing. Now, as we know, what it will allow is for everything to persist, which he says he's not too sure what this is going to mean, as they are not exactly sure what players will do with this technology beyond what they expect. So it will certainly highlight a few issues or oversights that reveal problems that need resolving, as anything you put anywhere will remain there forever on that server until that server gets manually wiped, which of course it will do from time to time, as this is an alpha. It'll happen in beta as well, a lot less often I'm sure, but in between any wipes, it'll just remain there. Now, the one big thing here, which is what enables server meshing, is that this persistent entity streaming separates the simulation that runs things like the physics, the rendering and AI, and the replication, which is what controls the updates and the states of all the entities. So they are now separate. So persistence is really more of a byproduct of persistent entity streaming, with server meshing being the key goal here. So I do wonder, as these are now separate, whether this will relieve pressure on AI and physics and such, meaning NPCs could behave a lot more consistently. Maybe the servers will degrade a lot slower as well. That would be very nice. But that was the update on persistent entity streaming. A great insight into kind of what it is and how it's going to change the game. For me personally, this persistence is one of the big ticket items that I have been constantly excited for, as it really allows Star Citizen to be played outside of this usual restrictive gameplay box, being able to properly plan and execute methods not generally possible in other games, like placing stashes around locations to come back to later on, or you could have people going out and placing weapon caches for you to find for a mission later on without having to bring it in on your own. Or, for example, you might be salvaging a derelict and a group of players arrive, so you don't want to lose your gear if you get killed or knocked out or whatever, so you could ditch all that gear into a bush somewhere out of sight, fight your way out, or maybe if you do get taken down, allowing you to return back and recollect everything without losing it. Kind of getting prepared for the mission and just dropping your excess bulk so that you are able to focus on the fight while retaining your gear. Speaking of salvage as well, once physical damage and breakability comes in, and physical components, our ships will become disabled instead of destroyed, and they will then persist indefinitely, becoming salvage. Now for 318, we're not getting physical components, we may be getting physical damage, I don't know, I'll speak about that in a second. But in terms of hull scraping, whenever anyone claims a new ship, for example, you could have gone to a cave in your ship, you could have died in the cave, woken up back in a hospital, reclaimed your ship and then gone and done something else, your old ship will remain where it was, and that will become free salvage because it is no longer legally owned by you. So there will be plenty of cases, even before we have physical components and ships being disabled rather than destroyed, there should be plenty of salvage outside of what CIG create for us to salvage. But also from 318 outwards, we will be able to actually use our ships as bases. So landing a Carrack, for example, you can leave it in the middle of nowhere and then use the Pisces to come and go, leaving the Carrack as a base to just live in. Also, I will say the fire hazard system was shown off here in the B-roll for this video, and both the fire hazard system and physical damage and breakability system, as I mentioned, each have their work coming to completion this month in September, according to the progress tracker. Which could mean it's coming with 318, which would then make salvaging far more interesting, especially having to put out fires, for example, although it is more likely a little too close to the cutoff to make it in for 318, so I'm not expecting it for 318, but at the very least, I do expect we will see both of these systems presented at CitizenCon this year, alongside the engineering work that has been going on. Anyway, that was Inside Star Citizen, a great update episode, and hopefully I've shed a bit more light into what we could potentially be doing with persistent entity streaming, and that is just literally a sprinkling of dust of what is possible. I am now even more excited for 318 than I have ever been, and I just can't wait to see it come to the PTU. But as Jared said at the end of the episode, the remaining 4 episodes of Inside Star Citizen will now be taking a look at all of the 318 features, like hull stripping and salvaging, the cargo refactor, and the 600i MSR derelict settlement, plus more, as well as meeting the mocap team in their new studios in the Manchester offices. But finally, Jared did tease that someone, unknown, we don't know who, may stop by, as his people are talking to CIG's people. So no idea who this is or what it could be about, but it has certainly piqued my interest. But with that said, let us move on. So also this week, Ship Showdown Phase 2 continues on as we vote for each of our favourite ships, which will eventually culminate in a free flight in September, with the top 8 ships being available to fly. Now I can't remember the dates because I cannot remember where I saw this, but I believe it was early September, something like the 8th to the 15th. I honestly can't remember, so don't quote me on that. But if you have been on the fence about whether you want to get into Star Citizen or not, the free fly is the best time to try, as you don't have to spend a penny, and you will be able to try all those ships out and the current alpha build completely free. So do keep an eye out for that. The Galactopedia was also updated, with the team continuing to add more information about the various systems that make up the verse, and something tells me that they are getting these brief descriptions of the different planets and locations, not just for us, but for the teams who will be creating all of these systems, as each recent Galactopedia update has more and more information regarding all the systems of the verse. So I reckon they're onto something there. And finally, the roadmap was updated, which I have covered in a separate video, which I will link below, and it was probably the smallest roadmap update we've ever had. So that brings us to the end of the show. If you do enjoy my content, please consider subscribing and hitting that like button. Also, I am able to do this thanks to my very generous patrons and channel members. If you appreciate what I do and would like to help make it even better from as little as $1 a month, all of the links are provided below.